me.
Hello.
Stephen, how are you? Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How you doing, my man?
I'm very well. I'm very well. How are you?
Good. I like your headphones there. Styling.
Yeah. I thought, before I'm audible in every possible channel, I would just at least block something out.
That's awesome. How you doing, man? It's been a while
I'm very well.
since we talked.
It has been. It was DC.
Yeah, it was DC, and I think it's been a while since we've done any kind of like joint video thing together.
Definitely. Yeah. Way too long, actually.
That's right. Look at that. You got fans freaking out here in the chat.
Oh, that's always nice.
Awesome. Well, we'll give everybody a couple of minutes to kind of get settled in here. I don't know how many people are going to be here. Oh, Aziza's joining us.
Hi. I haven't seen her in a while.
All right. Is she there? Is she in like the other room?
Yeah, she's. I can look at her right there. So it's yeah.
Nice. Hello. Hey, Aziza. That's awesome. Cool. Well, I have no plan here today. I was half expecting this not to even work because I tried this with Brad yesterday and it totally failed. So
I have found that Instagram can be a bit finicky with how it works.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, especially with the joint live, like you think about what's actually happening right now for us to be doing a live broadcast like this. There's a lot of technology going on here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So
this is fun.
Definitely. What's the weather like over there? Because
weather is pretty beautiful here. I mean, it's like it's winter time, so it's cold, but it's not snowing or anything. It's pretty tame where we are. So it's maybe in the mid 50s right now.
Oh.
So yeah, not too bad at all. How about up there in Canada?
Well, that's kind of why I asked. We've been having quite a lot of snow actually. I think right now we have multiple inches. So it's I was surprised because everyone told me, oh, don't worry, Toronto, they don't really get snow. You're safe. It's no problem. You'll be fine. But actually, it's far from that. I mean, everything is fine. Everything is working. But I mean, it's a lot of snow. I was shocked. So. We may actually get a white Christmas here if this continues.
Oh, I'm jealous. Yeah. So how's the weather there compared to Netherlands?
Well, it's more snow. It's actually interesting that right this year there was quite some snow in the Netherlands, but usually, I mean, a lot of snow in the Netherlands is 2 inches. That's considered a lot. So it's very interesting that right when I leave, the country is hit hard with all kinds of snow, but it's definitely more snow here and cold. It's usually in the Netherlands. It's maybe I'm used to thinking in centigrade. But
sure.
A couple of degrees below zero, but here it's easily -10 or colder. So it's cold out. That's beginning to look a lot like Christmas, so to speak.
That's right. Oh, that's awesome. So are you adjusting well to being in North America?
I think so. There was some not necessarily challenges, but it turned out that I couldn't just exchange my driver's license, for example, so I had to go through the trouble of doing a new driving test here and all that, but all that went fine, so it's not a
Gotcha.
big deal, but
Thanks, Jeremy.
That was definitely interesting because I was kind of hoping, of course, that I could just do some sort of switch. So it's tiny things like that, but
Sure.
In all, it's pretty good and pretty smooth, so I have no reason to complain, really.
That's great. So, we're coming at the end of the year here. I'm kind of curious, I don't know if you get like I do, but I get kind of like reflective about what's happened throughout the year, especially when it comes to like Penn stuff and just thinking about all the stuff that's come out. Do you have any like notable things that you experienced this year as far as writing Penn stuff goes?
Well, one thing that I was, of course, very excited about was the relaunch of my ink.
Yeah.
We did that. I think the last time was 2015, and then we had a small batch, 300 bottles, but just 30 milliliters. So it wasn't very.
I got one of those. I got one.
Yep. Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's very nice.
It's good stuff.
So those sold out in under a week. So I was quite shocked at that. But I thought that would be it, but people kept asking me for the ink, and I mean, of course, you want to help people to get it if you can. So I had a chat, and that's something that's been in the making for months when I was still in the Netherlands. The Akkerman fountain pen store in The Hague has cool bottles with glass marbles and all that. People always love that. And I was talking to the store manager there, and he said, you know what, I think we should just do it in our bottles if you want to relaunch it. And I thought, well, that's an opportunity. You can't say no to that. It's pretty much the coolest ink bottle that's out there, I think. So we did that, and it was a bit of a process, just because you have to arrange. I mean, you have to arrange all sorts of stuff and make sure that the stock is right and everything. You have to get everything sorted out. But that worked very well. The only problem was that I think in 2 hours everything they had was sold out. So I mean that was a bit shocking to me, because I really, and I mean, I did not expect that, especially because it was a second run of the ink, right? It was not all new. But that worked out. So just for the record, because some people were, of course, very sad they still missed out. So there will be a new launch in January.
Nice.
But for now that's it. And that's definitely something that was almost, I would almost say, anticlimactic. That for so long you're planning this, and how should we do this, and what label.
I know, right?
And then in 2 hours it's all over. So I'm happy that we'll have more, but that was very exciting.
I mean, I know exactly where you're coming from, because we end up doing that same thing all the time. You know, it's like we'll know about a product that's going to be launched sometimes we know way in advance. Sometimes it's like maybe a month in advance. But we plan for it. We take pictures of it. We take measurements. We do everything. And then it's like 2 hours, it's gone. And then it's like,
I know.
Well, it's like that never happened, you know?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It's definitely crazy, and a lot of fun. I mean, it's always fun, especially I mean, I know you have a lot of exclusive stuff, say with Edison Pen Company and such. I mean, it's always nice when you have something that's for you, you know, that's your product that you can share with people. I think that's great. But
yeah.
A bit hectic.
Yes. Just imagine going through that like several times a week. That's what we end up doing around here.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, of course you work on such a large scale that yeah, I can imagine the madness involved in that. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. It gets a little chaotic, but it's also fun too, because it's like everybody gets excited, and I know you know a lot of people in the pen community. You have a nice following yourself. Just pen people are really passionate and really excited about new stuff that's going on, and you know, especially like when you're launching stuff like this, like you're literally a part of pen history now. Like, do you ever sit back and you're just like, wow, I have a product out there that will be referenced in history with fountain pens with my name on it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, for a long time, I mean, this came to be in the first place because people kept asking me to launch my own pen, and that's something that's very interesting. But I wasn't really sure what to do, and from there it kind of moved to ink. Just because I thought maybe that's a little bit easier, and of course I have the advantage that my last name is actually color. So I mean, if you call Brown, then you kind of it's easy to pick the color. There was not a lot of decision making going on there.
Does that mean you're gonna have to do a brown pen if you come out with a pen?
You kind of have to. You kind of have to. So that was definitely interesting. But I agree with what you say. At some point I sat back. This sounds horribly morbid. It wasn't at all. But I thought, like, if something were to happen to me now, what would I leave behind? And I thought, well, you know, there's all the videos, but indeed there's also the ink. So that you know that happened. That is real, and that I think is very nice. It's a very interesting experience to leave something like that behind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really cool. And you know, I was reflecting even just yesterday as I was trying to do the broadcast with Brad, and Instagram had some kind of fluke and it just didn't work. I ended up spontaneously picking on somebody who had requested to join me live. And that's the cool thing about Instagram is you can literally just jump on and then just like go live with whoever in the community is following you. And I ended up this gal named Isabella, who's from the Netherlands of all places. And I was like,
interesting.
Hey, what's up? a lot of good stuff happening in the Netherlands. And turns out she's a photographer. She loves ink. She knows a lot about color correction and stuff like that. And she was telling me all about this. And I was like, you should like you're a natural, like you should do this. You should blog. You should do something with that. And I was DMing with her a bunch last night, and she's like, I think I really should start a blog about, she's like, I've got a book coming out. I should really do a blog. And I was like, go to medium.com. You can set up a blog, do all this. And I was just like, yeah, man, this is great. And it like brought me back to when you and I first started talking a while ago. You know, it's like you sent me that first video and it was just like, dude, you are such a natural. You got to do this.
Mm-hmm. I know, and I think that is the beauty of the all of the social media and modern technology, that you can. There's very little or very low threshold now to just do something, right? Because almost everybody has at least a phone with a camera or something. You don't need a professional studio to begin with. I still don't have that. So I mean, you can work with what you got.
Yeah.
And you can really get somewhere. And I think that's great, because I mean, we were discussing that a while ago, that when you started this, and then at some point I sort of tagged along and I started to do this kind of stuff. But that was kind of it on YouTube, for example. That was kind of it. But now, I mean, type in fountain pen review, you get dozens of people from all over the world and all types of age groups and countries and everything, all kinds of people doing pen reviews. And I think that's amazing. I mean, you get such a broad community that way, that's great. I mean, you can really interact and all contribute something, and I think that's fantastic.
Did you ever imagine that when you started doing this that you would be as involved in it as you are now?
Absolutely not. No, I can honestly say I not at all, and I'm shocked at it sometimes, because I mean I recently there was a specific purpose for that, but I had to rewatch one of my own videos, and I thought, man, you just go on and it's so boring. But apparently for some reason, it strikes the right chord with some people and not with other people, and that's fine too, because as I just said, there's such a wide range of options available, all kinds of people doing stuff, and that's really become a thing. And I really think so, that I never expected this to grow into what it has become.
Yeah.
And completely unexpected, but a lot of fun. And I mean, it has had a strong impact on my life, not only professional life. At some point, my PhD advisor sent an email link to one of my videos to all my other lab members but me, and said, well, now we know what Brown does in his spare time. So I mean, that happens. But not just that. I mean, I pretty much got to know Aziza through all of this, and had that not happened, I wouldn't be together with her now. So that's very fascinating.
Yeah.
Fun.
That's really cool. I mean, who would have thought? I mean, I can completely empathize with you, because, it's my whole livelihood. I have a whole team of people who their livelihood and their families, and they're buying houses, and they're literally like building their lives on this whole pen thing. And I'm just like, I'm so humbled by it all, just like I'm sure you are.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very it's a very humbling experience, and in that regard, I do think that going to pen shows, I mean, I'm sure you experienced that too, but I mean, going to pen shows, talking to so many people, it's amazing. And I mean, I don't mean that from the perspective of it strokes your ego or something, but I mean, but the fact that so many people watch your stuff and like it, that's amazing. And I typically give one example. At some point, someone sent me a message through YouTube a couple of years ago, and he said, I'm actually chronically ill, and every day I wake up hoping I have not lost some other function. It's
Wow.
that bad. But I always watch your videos, and the videos you do they can just distract me for a couple of minutes. And especially the stuff you do with the lobster, sometimes the stuff lobster comes on.
Yeah, fun
that
stuff.
That makes me laugh, and then I forget, even if it's just for a few seconds, I forget what's really going on with me.
Wow.
And that's obviously very moving, and the fact that you with something, let's face it, as silly as fountain pens, and I mean it's just a hobby, but that you can contribute something like that to someone's life, someone who is not leading the most happy life, I think that's nothing short of amazing. And that's a really powerful thing, I think.
That's wild. And do you think about that kind of stuff when you're shooting a video? And yeah, do you think like, oh my gosh, this is impacting somebody's life?
You know, I do, and I think it's occasionally. I mean, most of the time, most of the people I interact with are super nice, and occasionally there is someone who is not so nice, and it is especially at those moments because you can get 9 nice comments and 1 not so nice comment, but that one always sticks out. You know, that's always the one that stands out, and that's just the way it is, it's at those times, I think, that sometimes, especially if that happens 2 or 3 days in a row, you can feel a little down. That's just the way it is. I mean, you can try to ignore it, and people say, oh, just ignore it. But in reality, it's not always that easy. You know, sometimes it does get to you a bit. And at those times, I think back to these kinds of things. And I think, you know what, but it is a wonderful community. And the vast majority of people in the Penn community are super nice, super kind, super caring people. And I think that is something you should remember.
Yeah, I had one, the one that I remember that stands out the most. I've had a number of, people like that over the years. The one that stands out to me the most was somebody. I was at the Atlanta Penn show, which is not a huge show. There's a couple hundred people maybe that go to that show. And I went to that, and this lady comes up and she goes, oh my gosh. She's like, you have no idea how much I appreciate your videos. And I was like, thank you. That's awesome to hear. And she's like, no, really. She said, she's a doctor and she works in Nigeria, which is like literally like a war zone. And she says, I get shot at, I get chased down, there's genocide going on. She's like, there's some real bad stuff. And she says, literally, I wouldn't be able to do what I do there if I didn't have, like, she downloads my videos in podcast form and then watches them while she cleans her pens. And that's like her sanctuary during the midst of all the chaos. She's there like training other local doctors to be able to help people in that war zone. And she's like, if you weren't doing what you're doing, I don't think I would be able to maintain my sanity and keep doing it. And she'll like go for 6 months at a time, come back to the States for a month, go back. And she's like, you are literally helping me to do that. And I was like, wow. Like, I had no idea that, I'm just like talking about pens and, all that stuff. And you have no idea.
No, that's true. And I mean, you can definitely impact people's lives. And I mean, I've at Penn shows too, I've talked to people who said, I once had whatever, this surgery, or I had that and I was in the hospital, and I was just pretty much binge watching your videos, and that is what really helped. So I think it may sound grand, but you can actually make a difference in people's lives by doing this kind of stuff and by doing simple things, and that's this I think is one of them.
That's so cool. We got a couple of comments here that I want to address real quick. Somebody asked, what does the B.R.E. stand for in SbRebrown? I'm sure you get that question a lot.
I have received that on 1 or 2. Yeah, that happens a lot. Yeah, it's actually, what's interesting is that, first of all, they're just initials. But a short, but that I found interesting anecdote is that when I started out, at some point there was a thread about my videos on the Fountain Pen network, and people couldn't really figure it out. But of course I have a slightly peculiar accent because it's not really British and it's something European mixed in, and people couldn't really figure it out. So someone actually thought that I might be from somewhere in Eastern Europe, and that my first name was B.R.E. or something, that it was something Croatian or something. I thought that was comical. No, it's actually fairly simple. The S, of course, stands for Stephen. The B stands for Brendan. The R for Ronald. That's the name of my father. And the E stands for Erik, which is the Dutch version of Eric.
Okay. Is that common?
Way too many names.
Is it common to have that many names, or is that like a family thing, or is it just?
No, I think it was just my parents' insanity, Brian. I don't think there was any real reason to have so many names. It's confusing. No, they did have some reasoning with it, that they liked Stephen and they liked Brendan as in Saint Brendan, because my dad has sort of Scottish Irish roots a bit. So Saint Brendan, who sailed to or rode to Ireland, that was something. And then Ronald is my dad's name, and then Erik was just a character from a children's book that my mother really liked. So I really think there was some sort of parental insanity going on, but they may have gone a bit overboard with that. But I have a lot of names to pick from, so that's always fun. But I don't really think it's a very common thing in the Netherlands.
Okay, yeah, that's interesting. Well, it makes you stand out for sure.
Well, I'm glad, because I mean, as a scientist, I mean, I have published stuff, and StephenBrown is a very common name.
Right.
So actually, I always insist that the people put the B.R.E. in as well, because that's the only way I can sort of claw up and stand out, because otherwise there's a million papers.
Yeah, in a Google search, StephenBrown's, you're not coming up on top.
No, absolutely not. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. So I bet you if you Google SBRE Brown, is your Penn stuff going to come up first, or is your scientific studies going to come up first?
No. It's my Penn stuff, and it's very interesting. All sorts of interest in my personal life, because occasionally I just type in SBRE Brown in Google, and then Google fills in stuff like married ? Moved to Canada ? So there's definitely some interest in my personal life.
How about that? You can keep a pulse on what's going on.
Yes,
the sentiment of the Penn community based on your Google suggestions.
Yep.
That's wild. I haven't spent any time doing that. I wonder what would come up about me.
Oh, you should, Brian. You should, because you'll find out some interesting things about what people really want to know about you.
Oh, gosh. Well, see, it's interesting because I grew up, Robert Goulet was a really famous Broadway singer in the United States. So I grew up as a kid. Whenever I went anywhere, anybody who knew Robert Goulet, he's a celebrity, just like you have, Michael Bublé or somebody like that. If your last name was Bublé, they'd be like, oh, are you related to Michael Bublé? So for me, it was always, oh, are you related to Robert Goulet? And so I grew up in my childhood, and then it kind of died off a little bit. And then on Saturday Night Live, Will Ferrell did a skit about Robert Goulet, and so that kind of brought it to my generation, and like younger people then knew who Robert Goulet was. And then that kind of aged out, and then it kind of forgot, and then here we go. Now we got the Goulet Pen Company. So that's now more like the primary, making a name for myself instead of Robert Goulet.
Yep. That's right.
That's awesome. Somebody asked what knife you're going to be using to cook for dinner tonight.
Yeah, well, actually, that's a good question. That's probably going to be a kaishun knife, which is a Japanese knife, which I'm rather fond of.
Nice. And is that another personal interest of yours? Is that kind of like a secondary to the pens, I'm sure? Yeah.
I really try to keep that within bounds, because as with pens, kitchen knives can also go very much in price, so I really try to limit myself in that regard. But I do really like cooking, and I did at some point really get interested in knives. And a good friend of mine, Aaron, is he's a chef, and he lives in Ohio, and twice now he's been able to drive up here to hang out, and that's amazing, because I mean, if you have the opportunity to cook with a professional chef that man has amazing knife skills, so it's very informative to see that, and cooking together is always fun. So that is definitely personal interest. Yeah.
That's really cool, because I remember in your earlier videos you had a lot of swords and things like that. Is that kind of striking the same chord as the swords?
Yes, I would say the kitchen knives are a bit of a replacement for the samurai swords, because in moving to Canada, I had to sell those just because I didn't want to move. Those are basically like weapon grade things, and to bring that into the country, I didn't want to go through all that. So I left that, but then of course you need some sort of replacement. So then I thought, well, that's sort of like a sort of little pocketable sword. That's a kitchen knife, so that would work. Well, so I got that, and yeah, that's definitely fun.
You say little, but I see some of those knives you're using, and they are not little. I mean, they're like
no. I like my favorite size is 10 inches, just like Lord Windermere the lobster. He always claims he's 10 inches. So that's there is that. And I do have one knife that's 12 inches, but that's kind of, I think, the max of what I can handle. But it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Gotcha. So what pens are in your what pens do you have inked up right now? What are you using on a regular basis?
Right now, I recently did this series on my personal pens, because I actually sold off a lot with the following the reasoning that if you don't use it a whole lot, then maybe you don't need it in your collection. And at first I sort of hung on to all those things, thinking, well, maybe as a comparison in reviews, etc. But at some point I thought, I don't use them enough, and then it's just I think it's better to get them to someone else who really enjoy them than try to hang on to them. So right now, what I have inked up is, because of course I have them here, I wouldn't be unprepared, obviously. I have an OMAS Paragon, the Arco. That's one of the larger ones. So the post 2005 ones were a bit bigger than the older ones.
Nice.
Arco is a beautiful material.
It is beautiful.
Everyone agrees on that. So
Yep.
very, very sad that OMAS went under.
Yeah.
But that's a very nice pen. Also a nice size. In the Arco theme, I also have the Armando Simoni Club pen, which was recently launched. It's the Bologna Extra. In Arco, that's a beautiful pen. I think you would like it. It's a big model. It's actually quite heavy, but it's superb. And pretty much everyone I give that pen to try out says, "Oh wow, yeah, I see why you like that so much." It's a very robust pen. And then the final one that I have here that's inked up is Visconti Opera Master, which I think is a great pen model. This was one of the original ones. They had a demonstrator with some blue swirls. They had an all blue one, and this is either the tobacco or the tortoise. That some people call it the tortoise. It's very nice, I think, because it's a little hard to show, but it is transparent, so it's transparent material.
That's really nice.
I think it's a great pen. I mean, I know you have the Opera Masters as well. I think that's a great model. It's nice, large, but not absurd, heavy, but very robust, a great filling system. So I always think those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, and they really are not afraid to come out with some different stuff in those too, which I really like. You see so many different versions of the Opera Master out there, and they don't have any regular Opera Master. It's all limited edition stuff. So you get to see such a variety. And I follow Visconti Dave on Instagram here. Just so many cool old Viscontis and stuff like that. This is really kind of cool to see that. I know you're a big Visconti fan.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this one has the advantage that it still has one of the old style 18 karat gold nibs, which they stopped making. Those I think were very nice. And this one in particular, because I had the opportunity, or maybe the honor in DC, to have it tuned up by Mike Masayama, the Nib Meister, and that's just if you ever get a chance to do that, you should, because he can just turn a great pen into a superb pen. Yeah, and that's amazing. His craftsmanship and skill is just insane.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of people ask if we are planning to have an in-house Nib Meister. And I'm like, well, somebody like Mike doesn't just come along every day, like he spent 25 years working at Sailor, and then he's been doing his own thing for 15 years, maybe. He's got quite a bit of experience, maybe 10 years, I don't know, but
yeah, it really is a skill, but also a passion, because I thought I gave him that pen in DC, and I thought that's going to take him 5 minutes, just a bit, because it skipped a bit and such. But the whole thing was pretty much disassembled. The feed was put in water to heat set, even though it's a plastic feed, to be able to really set it to the nib. And I mean, you really have to know what you're doing. And I'm pretty sure it was. Maybe I shouldn't mention his name. Just I'm sure he wouldn't be offended. But in any case, someone I know had a pen, tried to grind it himself, and it didn't really work out. He gave it to Mike Marcel, and apparently Mike looked at it and said, "Yeah, grinding these is not as easy as it seems, is it?" So I mean, it sounds easy, but it's to do it well. That's a whole different story.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah. That's what I'm dreaming. I'm hoping that we can arrange something there.
That would be very cool. I mean, I have often thought that pen shops, not just you, but I mean in general, could really benefit from having someone in-house who could do it. And for example, I once discussed that with, as the person I mentioned before, the shop manager at Ackermann, because they used to do a lot of their own. They go back to 1910, and they used to do a lot of their own repairs.
Okay.
He said, we used to have a nib grinder, but the interest in that disappeared a bit because it was very common to just buy a pen and immediately have it customized to your writing angle or whatever. So I think if you would be able to bring that back, that would be extremely popular.
Yeah.
But indeed, you need to find someone who's willing to learn that trade, because that's what it is, and really invest in that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that was a lot more common, especially back then, because, they saw, it's exactly what you're talking about. And I think that was common in the US too. I talked to, distributors or manufacturers that we have that sell Parker or Waterman, like older brands. That was super common. Like most, somewhat larger pen stores would have an Inhouse Meister, and that was just like super normal. Your pen would break, you bring it into the store, the local brick and mortar store. They would have sales reps whenever they would come around and like literally. I mean, think about like demonstrator pens, like the clear pens. The reason they're called demonstrator pens is because literally they would have sales reps that would go around to the retail stores and show them to the store salespeople to show them how the internal components of the pen works. It wasn't like something that people wanted to actually use. That's a recent phenomenon. And of course now that's like the hot thing is to have clear pens. Yeah. Interesting. So what have you got going on coming up in 2018? Are you planning anything special or, kind of business as usual for you?
Well, I was shocked to see that. I mean, I was, especially when we got here, I had to kind of await getting a work permit and all that. So I had quite a lot of time to do pen stuff. And I was shocked to see, I think I currently have videos planned up to the second week of April already or something. So in a way it's kind of nuts that, that there's so much going on. There are a few things that I would like to bring back. One short series of videos that I did, not at a particularly steady pace or anything, but I did that occasionally, that people really seemed to like, was something called How Do You Like Me Now, which is where I basically re-review a pen. So, if I've had it for a year or more, I come back to it and give my thoughts on that. And as I said, I got rid of a lot of pens, so I don't have a whole lot, but people seem to like that, and I see why. I mean, it's one thing to get a pen and review it, and then you're enthusiastic or not, but I mean, right. I think often I am. You get it and you're excited, and then it's all new and it's fancy and you love everything about it, but then if you've used it for a year or more, then suddenly you start to notice some things that you may not like so much. So I think that is something I would like to bring back. The videos I've been doing with Aziza, the Serious Nibbage series, is I think loved by most and not so loved by some, but that's, as I said, that's fine. I mean, you can always watch something else. I think that is something we may want to pick up a bit more again, and maybe some other stuff. I was also thinking of some other things, like actually some people suggested that, like, could you do some more let's call that theoretical videos on, apparently you narrow down your collection. How do you go about curating a collection like that, or how do you select what pens to keep and what not to keep? And I mean, those sound, that sound like straightforward questions, but a lot of people said, oh, you only have whatever it is, 15 or 16 pens. I never considered the fact that you could also just get rid of what you don't like, so that I think in a way those kinds of videos where you can discuss how, or I could discuss how I went through that process, that could be useful to some people.
Oh, for sure.
So I want to try and do some more of that kind of stuff.
That would be interesting because you've actually done that. See, I don't.
Yeah.
If I did that, I would be a total poser because I don't get rid of anything. I just hoard them all.
Well, in my case, what the crucial factor was marrying, because I kept everything, even like inexpensive Chinese pens and everything. I had everything, and it was actually Aziza who said, "Listen, Brown, you have stuff that you never use. I've never seen you ink this up, so why do you have it?" And that was actually a very fair question. Why would you have it? And of course you can keep it all, if nothing else. For example, as I said earlier, like a reference collection where you can compare pens to other pens. But yeah, why would you keep it all? So for me, and now, you know, the thing is, I actually, now that I have something that pretty much fits in one Visconti 12 pen pouch and one other pouch or something, that's it. I'm actually very happy because I don't have any trouble in selecting what I want to ink up because I only have a couple. So I know that I want that and I want that, and that's it. So
Nice.
in a way, it's beneficial. Yeah, it was to me anyway.
Well, it's probably like more real life of what people are actually going through.
Yeah, and I mean, there's also, of course, there's the advantage that I have in that regard, and I say that with much reservation, but I mean, I've been doing the YouTube stuff since January 2011. That's a long time. I've been able to try out and use a lot of pens. So in that regard, I have no illusions. I'm a very blessed man. I mean, if you love fountain pens and you're able to try out hundreds, many of which I bought, many of which I just borrowed,
Right.
but you can try out all that stuff. You know, you also kind of, it's easier to figure out what you like than if you have to purchase every single piece. So I mean, I'm very grateful. I feel very blessed that I've been able to do that, but maybe that also made it easier to narrow things down.
For sure. Do you find when you're shooting videos, because you and I mean, we both end up doing this, there's so many pens out there, there's so many things, even the ideas that are coming through here, everybody's, you know, Bijou says, before you get rid of a pen, shoot a video explaining why and what you fell out of love with. And, you know, there's so many good ideas out there.
Absolutely.
You know, how much of it, when you're deciding, because obviously you're doing this in your free time, you know, you're not compensated for doing this. I have a little bit more incentive to shoot some videos because it's my livelihood, but you're just kind of doing it for fun. So, you know, when you're choosing to shoot a video, how much of it is like you just want to put something out there yourself, and how much of that is, you know, that kind of your following, if you will, for lack of a better term, is really interested to know something, so you're kind of doing it for them?
Well, that's a really good question, and a very valid question, and for sure, in all honesty, the focus has shifted a bit through the years, because when I started out, I didn't have any sponsors or pen shops sending me stuff. I could only review what I purchased myself. Then after a while, I was able to get some stuff. For example, the Joost Appelboom in the Netherlands has a pen company, and he lends me a lot of pens. Many of which are kind of in the higher end, so I'm talking limited edition Mont Blancs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But also pens in a much more affordable price range, like say a Lamy Studio or that kind of stuff. And where I started out really reviewing my pens, it has now become more of a thing of reviewing pens. And the thing is, I know that some people have some difficulty with that, and I can't really blame them, because indeed, where it started out as just me, a guy talking about his pens, it has now become more of a matter of, I got this in the mail today and I will share it with you. I still think that is worth it, because I get to show off, you know, I mean, like show a pen to the audience and talk about it, and what I like about it, what I don't like about it, etc. And so people can decide whether that's something they want to explore. And in that regard, I like to think that is still a useful service, because you know, you get to see pens. And of course, some of the stuff I review, I mean, as I said, with Appelboom, for example, I mean, a limited edition Mont Blanc, that's not for everyone.
Right.
And to be honest, most of the time, it's not for me either. There's nothing wrong with the pen. It's just not my pen.
Yeah.
So I mean, that happens. But still, there are people. So some people say, well, you know, it's a lot of expensive pens. That's true. But I also still review Inhouse and that kind of stuff, which is very affordable. So that focus has changed a bit. But I like to think that it's all still interesting. And I mean, I do occasionally, like, for example, that Armando Simoni pen. I saw that in DC. I know the person who makes them. I've known him a couple of years. And that was a pen that, even though it was just lent to me for review, I just loved. I immediately fell in love with it, and I ended up buying it from him. So there is still, I think, a lot of enthusiasm, but it can change a bit. I mean, if you get something sent in for review, of course, I haven't personally selected and bought it, so sometimes it's something that doesn't do as much for you personally.
Sure. I mean, I know sometimes this is, I don't feel like I'm hearing about this quite as much, but I know a couple of years ago it was a really big issue of like the legitimacy of pen reviewers, like getting stuff from a retailer like me or Apple Bloom or whoever. What's your take on that? I mean, you know more firsthand than anybody.
I know what you're talking about, and every time it resurfaces once in a while.
Okay.
And I understand that people might think, well, if you get sent something for review, then you'd better be nice about it, because otherwise they won't send you something again in the future. And I understand that. I mean, I understand that that's what people may feel. I feel like I don't do that, because if you look at the pens I have reviewed, for example, for Applebaum, I've been fairly harsh on some of them. Say the super expensive Mont Blancs. I don't have one clear example from the top of my head, but I have reviewed, say, $2,000 pens where things didn't line up, or there was a gap here or a thing there. So, I mean, I do point all that out. Like, this is a very expensive pen and it barely writes, or this is a very expensive pen and the attention for detail just isn't that great. So I do think I'm critical about that. But I mean, let's be fair. I mean, I do understand that people think, well, you get this, but I also think, yeah, if a company with Applebaum have a good relationship, but I mean, there have been companies. Well, I haven't been extremely kind about the pens, and they didn't really like it that much. And yeah, that can happen, But if you send me a product that isn't really up to par, then I have to point that out.
What do you expect? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's how it's going to be. So that's interesting. Now, as to objectivity, I think that the simple matter is, and that's another plan I have for 2018. I want to do one video, which thank you. I'm handed water. It's actually not vodka. It is water. And one thing I want to do in 2018 is a completely objective pen review, because it's not, if you received it, you can't be objective. But to give you a preview, an objective pen review, a completely objective pen review would be saying, this is a pen. It has a nib. It's a specific color. I can't tell you what color, because on the camera it's going to be different and everyone's eyes perceive color differently. So, it's a color pen. It has a nib. You can put ink in it and it will write. I can't tell you if it writes smoothly or not, because that would be a subjective statement. So, that you simply cannot be 100% objective, but no one in the world can, whether you're reviewing pens or books or movies or music or cars or hi-fi, it doesn't matter. No one can be 100% objective. So what I try to do in my reviews is show people what a pen is about. Like, well, this is particularly nicely made. It's a very nice finish. Has a nib that writes very pleasantly. But that's all you can do. And there is always just a subjective factor, because your pen taste is different from my pen taste, and that's how it should be. Otherwise, you wouldn't have to review it, because everyone would like the same thing.
Absolutely.
So, that's it's always tough.
That's interesting. As you were saying that, an idea popped in my head, like, you need a character who only reviews pens 100% objectively.
I think that would be, yeah, I think maybe the professor should do that or something. But I think, yeah, that's a great idea. There should just be like the monthly completely objective pen review or something. Yeah,
I could see that as being something, it would need something, some extra little layer, some little sprinkling of something in there, but that would be pretty funny. Yeah, now, Drew?
I am.
All right. Want to say hi to Stephen real quick?
Oh, yeah, I'll say hi, Stephen.
This is Drew Brown.
Hey.
Hello, Drew.
Stephen, I was just listening, and I would just like to take a moment to say I think your reviews are as good as they can be as far as being impartial. I watched you and Aziza talk about the Stipula Splash, and I personally have some strong feelings about that pen. Not entirely positive, but I think that you guys illustrated its shortcomings respectfully, and you did it right. You really did do it right, and I think that you've got a tremendous skill for that. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you for doing what you do.
Happy holidays. Thank you.
Let's give a shout out to Drew's sweater. That thing is fantastic, right?
that was amazing. I agree.
Drew has inspired me this holiday season with his sweater strength.
I saw that, and I like it. I like what's going on.
Yes, I got a Snoopy one today. This is my.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It's good stuff, and it's comfy too. It's like a sweatshirt more than a sweater.
That helps.
Yeah,
that's always a good thing.
It's good. Well, I completely empathize with what you're saying because I mean, if anybody was going to be biased, it would be me because I literally directly financially gain from saying this is a great pen, you should buy it. But I feel exactly the same way you do. It's like you literally can't try to eliminate bias because the fact that you're a human being and not a robot, even the pen that you are choosing to review, there is bias there. And even if you only reviewed pens that you buy, you chose to buy that pen for a reason. Unless you literally just like close your eyes and click on a random pen and buy it, you cannot be unbiased. So rather than take the approach of I'm trying to be a completely, amorphous being that's objectively reviewing a product, which is impossible with fountain pens, especially because they're so personal. I say rather, this is me as me reviewing this product, and I have a preference that lean towards this. So this is my opinion. However, you may feel completely different. And I always try to layer an extra perspective. And part of that is my personality style. I've taken the Myers-Briggs, and my personality style is the debater. So I have a very easy time kind of counteracting my own opinion. So I always try to think like I have large hands, but you know what? If you have small hands, you're probably going to da-da-da-da. And switching back and forth between the two while still maintaining pretty steadfast in my own opinion about something. And I have pens that I absolutely love that other people absolutely hate. And there's other pens that people hate that I love, and so on. I think leaning into that more is what makes reviews so interesting, because you have a very different taste in some ways than I do, and Rachel has a different taste, and Drew has a different taste, and Aziza got different, and Matt Armstrong's got a different taste, and it's, everybody's got a different thing going on. So I think that's beautiful, and that to me gets to more of the like individuality and personalized nature of it. And it's just, as a reviewer, it's just so much more fun to put yourself out there rather than try to like be completely objective and distance yourself from the personality of whatever pen you're reviewing, leaning into that completely. And then if people, but I think where you can, and you probably felt this too, and I'm getting on a bit of a soapbox here, but if you've probably felt this, and I know Matt Armstrong has talked about this too, but like people that can like personally attack you in the comments and stuff like that. That's very common, especially on YouTube and other, Reddit and places like that. People can get rather brave behind the keyboard when they talk about that stuff. Some people struggle with that more than others, especially because we're all doing this on our own passion, and it's hard to get those harsh comments and stuff like that. My personal stance on all of it, I've never really struggled with it because I always look at that and I have empathy for whoever it is that's leaving that comment. And I think part of the advantage I have here is the fact that we're a customer service oriented business. So we deal with upset or miscommunication all the time, like every single day. Somebody's upset about something and we have to address it and kind of be diplomatic and understand all that. And I can't tell you the number of times I've had somebody lace into me. Literally, I've had people tell me that I am a crook, that they are going to sue me, that I'm, I've had people say that they're going to report me to the State Department and all this stuff because of, how much I charge for a preppy O-ring, and just like literally the craziest of stuff that you can imagine. But when I do this, and I tell my team too, I'm like, wait out the conversation, hear it all, empathize, get to understanding where they're coming from. And I can't tell you the number of times that people have finished out that conversation and then they come back and apologize later and they say, I'm so sorry, my dog died this morning, or my wife has cancer, or my father got this, or I've had depression, or I've had da-da-da-da-da. And it's just, you're taking the brunt of that right there. And I think that's the answer to it. Like it takes a lot of strength. And I think I give you credit, I give Matt credit, Aziza, anybody who's been around and doing this for a number of years, you're going to run into that. And if you can stick around for a number of years, you have obviously found a way to work through that. And I think that, so credit to you for doing that. Cause I haven't seen that like affect the way that you have done your videos, and the fact that you're like willing to jump on live with literally like no plan of what we're going to talk about. And, you know, just from the love that we're getting in the comments here is very encouraging. And
Absolutely.
I think that's really cool. And so, you know, we as the Penn reviewer community, you know, got to support each other a little bit. But I'm always discouraged when I see other reviewers and bloggers and stuff getting discouraged by those comments. I think it just takes a little bit of perspective. So that's kind of my take on all that. You know, have you kind of come to the same conclusion yourself? It seems like it.
Yeah, and it's tough. It is something that I find, relatively speaking, gets easier. The longer you're in it, the easier it gets to brush something aside.
Yeah, because you kind of hear it all, right?
Yeah, you do. And I mean, you know, I mean, there are always, no matter what hobby or field or niche you're in, there are always people who are opinionated, who have very strong opinions about things. If they share your opinion, things are easy. If they don't, then it can be a bit more difficult. It's interesting what Drew just said about the stipula and being respectful. I think that is actually the key. I think some people don't always realize that when they say something, it's actually it's often a very disrespectful way to say it, because obviously you can disagree with someone. Natural, happens every day in life. And you know, if you can't handle people disagreeing with you, then you must be living in a constant state of disappointment, because that's what life is. People will disagree with you. I think the hard part is the way people do it, because some people tell me, you know, you reviewed this pen, you said you didn't like it, but I love it. It's my favorite pen. So I didn't really get your point, but you're entitled to your opinion.
Right.
Sure, no problem, right? Some people can be a bit more aggressive. You just gave some good examples, I think, of that. Some people can be a bit more verbal about it, a bit more verbose even, and some of them get really worked up. And sometimes I think, yeah, you know, I mean, occasionally, once in a while, and to be honest, I kind of stopped reading all that stuff. But there was a time when I did try to read it. It happens on Fountain Pen Network or Reddit or whatever. And people are basically reviewing me as a reviewer, like, oh, he did this wrong, and his music sucks, and his camera is bad, and the audio is incomprehensible.
I remember there was a time when you got a lot of flack for like your camera quality and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that was also because, I mean, when I started out, I used the built-in camera on my laptop, and it was poor quality. It was low frame rate, but it was what I had. So it was either that or not doing it, right? So I mean, and at some point you can work up a bit, you get a better camera, and it turned out that the video editing software I had wasn't that ideal, so it kind of made things a bit more pixelated. And you know, it all sucks, but you try to make do with what you can. And I think, again, by far the vast majority of people I interact with online are super nice. They're all super nice. For sure. And pen shows too. I mean, every single person I talk to at a pen show is a super nice person. Yeah. Like everyone. And occasionally there are a few people who I think kind of like to bicker a bit and like to, you know, kind of sort of pick at things and try to evoke a response. And that happens. And I think the trick, and that's not just about reviewing pens. I mean, that's just the trick about life, is you have to learn to deal with that. And I think that very nice. At some point, I saw a TV program about some abbot, like a leader of a monastery somewhere in Belgium, and he said to be an adult means to be able to deal with frustrations without being a frustrated person. I thought that's a very nice way to put it, because that's exactly what it is. There will always be frustrations. There will always be, say, people who disagree with you. And that's fine. Or people who get a bit belligerent and really, really sort of trying to pick a fight with you online. That will always happen. The trick is learning how to deal with it and just ignore it. And that is not always easy. And I'm definitely not saying that it's something that gives me absolutely no issue. Some days it's easier than other days. Sometimes it really gets me down a bit, but you know, it hasn't stopped me from doing this. So I mean, I'm definitely still going strong in that regard.
That's good. And as a you know, I'm like you. I'm not inherently like a content creator. Like I was like you. I had a video camera that we got when my son was born, and I had a laptop, and that is just what I did. I used iMovie, and I was like scrapping together. I had no formal training in any of it and had to figure it all out. But the phrase that I've always appreciated is done is better than perfect.
Yeah,
that you know,
agree.
that's exactly what I'm hearing out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, as you said earlier, you were talking about the Dutch lady you were talking to, and how you encouraged her to just do something. And that's what happens to me too, which is the reason at some point I did a video called "Why Aren't You Reviewing Pens?" or "Why Aren't You Doing Pen Reviews?" something like that. And that's still a very popular video. And I have talked to people. I'm pretty sure it was Dave Figwood on Pens on YouTube, who I talked to him in DC, and he said, "You're the reason I'm doing this." And I mean, he has his own channel going, and his own reviews going, and I mean, I don't want to take credit for that, because obviously he's putting all that work in, but just do it. If you have pens, get out and do it, even if it is your phone camera or your iPad or whatever you have.
Yep.
But just go for it and see where it leads you.
Exactly.
There's very little to lose, maybe people won't watch your videos. Well, okay, then it takes some time. And,
yeah. I mean, I remember back in the early days when I started shooting stuff, it was like my blog or YouTube or whatever would be in the single digits of views per day, and that's how you got to start out. But over time you do it, and it's at the point now where on the Goulet Pens YouTube channel, there's as many views we get in 1 week as we had in about the first year and a half worth of videos. So it takes time to do that stuff, and you figure it out, and it
takes time, and I think that the crucial thing is, don't expect that you're going to have 10,000 subscribers in a month or a week or maybe even a year. Take it easy. Don't have those expectations, and then just see where it takes you. And it's a great journey. And I mean, for me, it has given me a lot. Not just, as I said, a wife, but which is that's kind of a big thing, right? I mean,
I'd say that's a pretty big one.
That's a pretty. But I mean, even in other things, I mean, people. At some point, there were some people who said, I think they said you always say color or something, but it's actually color. There's a slight difference in your English. Your pronunciation is a little bit off. And I'm not a native speaker of English, so even small things like that have helped me. And in say presentation skills, because I sometimes watch a video from 3 or 4 years ago, and I'm like, stop talking. Why, Brown? Why are you talking so much? Get to the freaking point.
Right.
And you just, because you have to grow into that, and you have to learn to. In my case, I had to learn to limit myself and stay on topic, Stephen. You can do it. Talk about the nib. You just did it. I mean, that kind of stuff. That's important. So you can actually learn a lot from this, and the feedback you get, which again, most of it is very nice feedback. So very helpful.
So that's a good point. And speaking of wives, I have Rachel in here who's like reminding me that it's 5 o'clock and I need to get going because she wants me to come home and help with dinner. So this has been a blast, and the time has flown. We'll have to definitely do this again. I mean, it's cool to hang out. But this has been awesome. Thanks so much for joining me. And
likewise, it was fantastic. I really enjoyed this.
Awesome. Next time we'll have to have Aziza jump on here, and we can have a double date, so to speak.
Yep. Sounds great.
Yes. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I think I'm going to try to download this, and maybe we can throw it up on our YouTube channels or something. Sure. This was really good stuff. So that'd be good. Lots of hearts coming up on the channel here along that one. So very cool. Well, I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and
you too.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe we'll be able to link up in person sometime next year. That'd be great.
For sure.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. Right on.